ethics is such an important conversation in our world today, now more than ever. With the rise of AI tools, it is important that we discuss the ethical use of AI in our world to ensure the safety of people. In this video, I'm going to be inviting Nitya, who is doing such an amazing work in the AI ethics space. Nitya's journey into tech safety started at a design thinking consultancy where she loved working at the intersection of technology and society. Through multiple tech for good projects, she realized that she was driven by trying to make technology safer and better for diverse users. She went to Oxford to better understand this and quickly got involved in the growing AI safety space. Her experience has been anything but linear across AI safety, product growth, project management, and tech policy. I'm really excited to have Nitya join me in this conversation. She's going to be sharing a lot about AI ethics. What is even AI ethics? How did she get into it? How did she start? And if you're out there watching this video, how you can get into the AI ethics space and start working to ensure technology is used for good. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, drop your comments, your questions, and we'll be more than glad to answer each and every question. Hi Nitya, welcome to my YouTube channel. And I'm really excited to have you join me. I had the privilege to work with Nitya at Gemoteka. And when I was thinking of somebody to talk about this topic on AI ethics, which is in fact very important in our world today, Nitya came to my mind because I've been seeing the amazing work she has been doing, from research projects to community building to product development around this. And there was no other person I could imagine talking about AI ethics on my YouTube channel. So hi Nitya, really excited to have you. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, and thanks so much for thinking of me to have this chat. I'm always excited and willing to chat about anything tech safety and AI safety related. So excited to get into this.
So who is Nitya?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Nitya. I'm originally from Delhi, but currently I live in London. I think I always describe myself as someone who has quite a non-linear career path. But right now I'm very interested in working very deeply in tech policy and AI safety. But that's not where I began. I sort of began working in design thinking, which is a specific kind of research methodology. And I was sort of at a design thinking consulting firm for about 4 years. And very quickly into that journey, I realized that online safety, or just making sure that people felt safe and empowered online, was really, really important to me, specifically for young girls and women. I come from a country where young girls and women are often quite vulnerable. We don't have the same opportunities and access to technology tools as some of the men that we're surrounded with do. And I think for me, that was really important, that how could I build or be part of teams, organizations, and a world in which tech was really used to empower these kinds of audiences. So I thought that, okay, what's the best way to learn about that? I wasn't sort of doing that on an everyday basis. So as any sort of diligent Indian does, they're like, oh, I'll go back to school. So I sort of applied to come back to school to a master's program. And I did this 1-year master's program called Social Science of the Internet at the University of Oxford, which was a very, very, very great program. And I was also very lucky to be doing that program at a very interesting time. It was sort of the winter that ChatGPT launched. Elon Musk was going to take over Twitter. TikTok was going to be banned, so I'm sure everyone will remember it was sort of a winter, but a lot of drama was going on the internet and with technology. And I just said, like, oh, this is just so exciting. There's so much happening. I just want to get involved. But I continued to think about my North Star, like how could I get involved in a way that really did make tech safer, really did help empower people. So ever since graduating, I've sort of focused my expertise on, I guess, maybe 3 different kinds of buckets. The first one is sort of really drilling down on AI safety and responsible AI. What does that mean, and how can we build systems that really adhere to those principles? And I'm happy to talk a little bit more about that. Secondly, as you described, and kind of when we met, I was doing a lot of sort of product strategy and obviously project development sort of work for a tech startup to think about how can we build products itself that are responsible, safe, and ethical, And right now I'm sort of exploring the world of policy development. How do we write policy and compliance and regulation to ensure that this technology really does have guardrails to ensure that things aren't being pushed over the edge. I've also been freelancing for a couple of months. I've also building a community of women in safety and ethics, often for women, especially women of color. This space can be quite daunting. You often don't see people looking like you or me at seats of power, being part of important conversations. And I just wanted to change that. So I got really good advice from one of my mentors where they were like, instead of waiting for a community to come to you, build the community that you want. So through women in safety and ethics, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to build a community of people like you and me, so we can have conversations about AI safety, responsible AI, and really sort of contribute to the space in a very meaningful way. And outside of all of that, I'm someone who loves running. I love swimming. I'm quite outdoorsy. And I also love sort of cooking and eating really, really spicy food. So maybe that's enough for an intro.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that's brilliant intro. I love all like the important work that you're doing, and who else to like advocate and create this space than you. So excited about all the work. So let's just deep dive into it. When people hear AI ethics, what is it even about, and why should they care about it? Can you share a bit about that?
Yeah, I think that's such a good question and such a great question to start off with. I think very many of these conversations assume sort of prior knowledge. I'm happy to walk through what AI ethics and AI safety, or what that nebulous term really means to me. I mean, we're in late 2025. I'm sure we all know what ChatGPT is, Claude, Gemini, all these sort of the proliferation of large language models and how that's really brought quote unquote AI to the forefront. But of course, I want to caveat by saying large language models are only one part of AI and one part of artificial intelligence, but that's what a lot of the work has now been focused on because of how ubiquitous it really is, how casually and normalized using some of these tools are. It's basically like you're chatting with someone and it's sort of revealing things back to you. So when you think about AI ethics, what does that really mean? It's like, how do we build and think about these systems in a way that has that kind of in some ways has a moral compass? That as human beings, we have certain values, we have certain quote unquote right and wrongs, of how we navigate the world, how we make decisions. So if we're going to be delegating a lot of our decision making, a lot of our thinking, a lot of our ideation, creative endeavors to these machines, to technology, how can we ensure that it isn't doing it with ill intention, isn't going to like lead us astray or just make sort of incorrect or unfair decisions? Very often we use it as like a thought leader, as like a thought partner, but if it's been based on certain kind of data or certain kind of information that is misleading, incomplete, or not representative of the entire world, that's kind of the response you're going to be getting, right? And if we sort of begin to continue to rely on it, as we already do more and more, and sort of like really begin to trust it very intimately, like that can have quite poor and quite bad, often scary repercussions. So AI ethics, really in a nutshell and in a very simplistic form, is to think about like how can we ensure that these systems really are putting human beings and all the diversity that we represent at the center, and ensuring that our experiences, our diversity, our multitudes of the way we live, the way we think, the way we behave is represented, and it isn't going to be spewing out harmful, unsafe, unethical responses. So it's about thinking about processes, frameworks, guidelines of how we should interact with these technologies, but also how we should be building and creating these technologies itself.
Yeah, that's such an important work, because I also came across some people using AI the wrong way and leading to suicide, depression, and all of that. That these are really important conversation, because why I asked why should people care about it, because someone out there might be like, oh, okay, I'm just using it to brainstorm on projects. I'm just using it to chat, but we don't see the deeper problems. I shared this video on my YouTube channel one time, and I just touched a bit about AI ethics from watching this documentary, Coded Bias, and a lot of people were asking, okay, how do I start? Who are people that I should follow in this space? So my question back at you, Nitya, is how did you start working in the AI ethics space, just building this safe communities for tech? And because it's pretty new, and maybe you can touch a bit of that because you're the expert.
I would not call myself an expert by any measure, but I appreciate that. Yeah, I also want to just caveat by saying, like, obviously there's no one right way to get involved. Like, I think that's what's so interesting and that's what's so
Okay.
great about this space. Like, people can take different journeys, lean on different skills, lean on different parts of their experience, or lean on different themes, areas, or parts of this entire industry that they're interested in. And as you said yourself, right, like, it's so new. So I think that's what makes it so exciting, that we can all sort of get in and sort of build the foundations of what we want this industry to really look like. And I can talk a little bit about what that's been like for me. So as I was mentioning, and when I graduated from the University of Oxford, like, I knew that AI safety, responsible AI was something that I wanted to do. And at the time, I was really interested in working in a dating company, in a dating app company, because that's what I had written my thesis about. And I said, oh, it would be so cool to basically work in the trust and safety or integrity team of a dating app, like, let's say Bumble or Tinder or Hinge or some of the big dating app companies at the time, and just think about how I could specifically make dating safer. Right. And at the time, a lot of AI usage that was coming in was actually within these teams. So thinking about how we could proactively catch, like, bad actors from sending inappropriate messages, writing inappropriate things on their profiles, people creating, like, fake accounts or, like, trying to scam people. So for me, what was really interesting is that I wanted to work on a specific use case. And I was really interested in, like, the dating context of sort of all the mix of technology and, like, technology and love and relationships. I always find that relationship very, very interesting because it's very much human, but it's also been sort of repackaged into technology in so many different ways. All to say, I have never worked at a dating app, so that really didn't pan out. I was interviewing a lot. I was really trying to get in, but at some point I had to read the writing on the wall that those opportunities were not sort of coming to me. And I said, okay, fine, like, maybe I put this dream that I have to bed for a bit, and I sort of think about different ways in which I could get involved. And that's kind of when I came across a really interesting project being built out of a nonprofit where they were trying to experiment with building a generative AI educational chatbot to be deployed for teachers and educators in sort of post-conflict zones. Again, so it was a specific use case. It was education, which was not something I had really, like, thought about, or really was, to be honest, I wasn't really interested in. I was really, like, trying to go for user-generated content, social media. But I said, okay, this could be interesting. Like, why don't I just see where this goes? I was sort of hired to be a project manager for the generative AI chatbot that we were building. But I think just coming out of school and being someone who was really interested, and also the youngest person on the team by many, many years, I was asking very different kinds of questions. I was like, okay, like, who's building the AI safety protocols? Like, who's red teaming? Like, I think because I was so interested in this space, I was very well versed with the vocabulary and in theory well versed with what needed to be done. But I'd never actually done it myself. So I would just come into these rooms and ask these questions, assuming that someone else would be handling sort of creating these processes. I got really lucky that I sort of worked in an organization where I was given sort of the freedom to be like, okay, Nitya, you're asking all these big questions. Why don't you figure it out yourself? And why don't you create these processes? Why don't you create the AI safety mechanisms and the responsible AI processes that you are hoping that our team puts together? Because we don't have an expert in-house. We don't have the budget to hire someone else. But since you're interested, why don't you do it yourself? That was an extremely lucky place for me to be in. Of course, I'm not trying to paint it like it was all roses and butterflies. It was also very difficult because I had never done it myself. So a lot of that meant that I was leaning a lot on my networks, leaning a lot on people on LinkedIn, talking about some of these issues. But then it really meant that I was bringing these back to a specific kind of use case. So I sort of like thought about what are the responsible AI practices, or what does a safe generative AI chatbot tool look like, So I ran red teaming exercises. I sort of created classifiers for the harmful behaviors that we didn't want to encourage. So what that meant is that if someone was using our chatbot and there was some sort of mention of self-harm or violence in a classroom, or misinformation or sort of gendered stereotypes, like what would we do in that situation? Like being a team that has built this chatbot, if we have a teacher sort of engaging or sharing sort of information or sharing content that is a bit harmful, like what is our immediate reaction, right? And then thinking through what that actually means. Do we have to sort of create an escalation protocol? Who needs to be informed that this is happening? What does a chatbot immediately respond by? Just saying like, that's wrong. Is that what we want to say? Or do we want to direct them towards the right answer? Do we want to direct them towards resources in case they're sort of displaying or talking about sort of mental health concerns? We don't want to just be like, okay, sorry, we don't want to engage with this, but we have the opportunity to be able to share resources with them. So just thinking about all these different kinds of use cases and different kinds of scenarios that teachers on the ground were actually facing, and then sort of coming back to the drawing board and thinking about how we wanted to build out this chatbot. So that's kind of the work that I was doing, and I was really, really learning on the job. I was like, I think there's this really famous saying, right? Like you're driving the car whilst building it, and I think a lot of people use that for, especially right now, right? Like we're experimenting with things while we're still building out the technology, or while we're still trying to think about how this gets applied. And I think that's really, really what I did. I think what worked for me was just like sheer like delusion in the fact that I could do it, and I was sort of determined to get it done. Again, I want to say like I was working in a very safe environment. We had a sandbox, so I wasn't launching any of these products out into the wild. We were obviously testing them with certain restrictions, with certain kinds of parameters in place. But I was given the reins to sort of experiment and try some of these things out. I was in a very, very lucky situation. But all to say that if there's someone who's interested in a specific kind of use case or specific kind of theme, create a sandbox of your own. Think about what are ways in which you want to build this system out. Think about go on to these platforms, or think about building your own platform and think about what safety means to you. What should that protocol really look like? So I think it's like, for me, what was really useful is having a specific use case to work through. And number two, like being, I think, humble and honest about how much you actually didn't know. I found that to be really, really helpful. So I would sort of like reach out to people, often strangers on the internet through LinkedIn, and be like, I'm trying to build this thing. I actually don't really know what that means. Given your background, I would love to learn from you. What are things that I could keep in mind? Or you're an expert in this area and I'm trying to build up my skills and thinking about how to build classifiers for a generative AI chatbot. What does that even mean? Like, what does that even look like? What are the operational processes that I have to keep in mind? How do I ensure that my team understands what I'm trying to do? So I think that is for me what really worked. Like having the faith in yourself, like you can figure it out, but also knowing that you're not an island. Like there are people around who are so generous with their time, energy, and knowledge. And by the end of the day, we're all just trying to do good work. Like we all want to make systems that are better, that are safer, that empower people to feel protected and safe. So just reminding yourself that you're doing this for a good cause can really be sort of the fuel, or can be the wind under your wings, I would say. So I think that was really, really helpful.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. You really raised important points that I got on from there. If someone is young and wanting to start, they should be able to be bold enough, delusional enough to reach out to people in this space, learn from them, or ask questions. And I really agree with what you said. More times than not, people are actually willing to share their experiences, their knowledge, and how you can work on these things, because at the end of the day, everyone is kind of working to achieve the same goal. How did having a non-linear career path play a pivotal role in really contributing to tech safety and an inclusive AI world?
Yeah, thanks for that question. Yeah, I think as I mentioned in my introduction, my first role was actually in design thinking. And then I came back to school, so I was in some ways a student again, so doing a lot of research work. Then I worked as an AI safety operations manager and a project manager. Then I worked on sort of project strategy and client management. Now I'm working in policy development. Every step of the way, like I've been very clear about the kind of skill sets I want to be learning. So I think I've been quite bullish in what I want to be gaining from like my next role, whether it's a project, whether it's a full-time role, whether it's also just like volunteering my time, whether it's like building a community up from scratch. I think all of that contributes to my perspective and like the kind of questions I ask, the kind of like opinions I have, the kind of contributions I make in certain sort of like group settings, team settings, but also while engaging with different kinds of stakeholders, while having conversations about these very important tools that we're using on an everyday basis. I mean, if we just think about it in a very rational, sort of like simplistic way, like we all have very individual personal relationships with technology. Like the way I maybe use my phone, my laptop, different platforms, different kind of tools, whether it's AI tools or traditional internet-based platforms like Facebook, Instagram, whatever. Everyone has their own relationship with them. We all have our own perspective of how we think it impacts us, how we think we lean into it, how much we don't. So I feel like it's kind of the same thing with AI and some of these more like novel, really quick, fast-paced technologies, right? We all have our own relationship with it. Like the way it impacts us or the way it impacts me could be very different to the way it impacts you. And I think that everyone has something to share, whether it's someone who's like 85 years old or whether it's someone who's years old and is like very tech savvy versus someone who's like a first time user. And I think that's what's so great about these tools. Like everyone does use them. So you have such diverse usage patterns. So then you have to also like design it in a way that caters to that kind of diversity. And the only way that you can do that is by having those kinds of people in the room. Right? Like if you only have certain kinds of people from certain kind of background, speaking certain kinds of languages, having certain kinds of life experiences, dictating everything about technology, how it should be made, how we should use it, how it should look, it really won't serve everyone on the planet. And I think that's why it's so important to have diverse people in the room. And I think I've been very lucky and very, very fortunate to be in rooms where the diversity of my experience has been valued. I have been able to contribute in ways that are meaningful. I've always been lucky to have really great managers who are invested in what I think about this thing, what my opinions might be, where I think the tide might be turning. And I think it's so important to just remember that everyone has a wealth of knowledge about these kinds of things. And even if they don't, but like, it's not that everyone has something really deep and profound to say and like that's okay. Like none of us are saying very deep and profound things anyway. We're all kind of saying the same thing in different ways. So I think it's just like remembering that every experience you have really does lean into what you're trying to do right now. I could have come from like sales, marketing, hospitality, but I still engage with technology tools in a way that is very fundamentally core to who I am as a human being. So I think to me, that's really what it is about.
What has been some of the projects that you've really been excited to work on? I know we've talked a little bit about some projects that you've worked on in the past, but can you share more about some AI ethics projects to really help people visualize what it is like to work in the AI ethics space?
Yeah, I mean, I can maybe talk a little bit about a project that I worked on called The Box, which I guess is a very unique way of contributing to the AI safety sort of responsible AI world. So maybe that helps people think about that there's really no linear path. So as I mentioned, I've been quite engaged and involved in this world of AI safety for a couple of years. And last year, I think maybe early last year, I started getting really, I guess as a woman, quite angered by how people really didn't care about AI generated deepfakes and how much it was impacting women. So like basically AI generated deepfakes are basically if you go on any of these large language model tools and you say, or create an inappropriate, often nude image of a woman, it's sort of created without any friction. Like there are almost like no restrictions and there are no guardrails. And to me, I was just wondering why people weren't more angry about the fact that it was so easy to do that. Being a woman myself, and it particularly impacts, I think, women of color, the most impacted sort of segment of the population that are targeted for AI generated fakes. So I was just like, I wanted to do something. I was sort of like fuming in my own seat, but I wanted to contribute in some way to the discourse, or I just wanted to put something out there, but I was just getting a bit disillusioned or a bit like frustrated with the number of white papers and blog posts and like LinkedIn posts that I was seeing about it. Because again, this was my own experience. I just felt like that wasn't pushing the needle. I think people were just like scrolling past it, or it wasn't really driving the point home. So I wanted to have a bit more of like a public engaging way of sort of thinking about this topic. I made a really good friend that I'm lucky enough to call a friend of mine now, who I also met randomly on LinkedIn. My collaborator on the box, Louis, he was sort of someone I had just been like, "Hi, Louis, I love your work," on LinkedIn last year. And I was like, "Can we just meet for coffee?" He was also London based. Actually, he had just moved to Oxford and I had moved from Oxford to London. So we had switched positions in a way. And I said, "Oh, I would just love to meet and learn more about your work." He was doing a lot of work on like satire and thinking about how we could make commentary about tech in a way that was more fun and engaging. And we just met, I remember, at a coffee shop in London, and we just ended up chatting for hours. We just had so much to exchange, so much knowledge. We just had so many ideas that we wanted to work on. It was almost like we got along really well instantly. And then we said, okay, we don't know what it is, but like, let's just try and do something together. And so sort of that was happening at the same time when I was sort of getting frustrated by this idea of this AI generated deepfakes. And we would have brainstorming sessions every week, and we just wanted to like bring something to life. And he's really funny, and he's like great technologist, so he's able to like build a lot of really cool experiences. And we were starting thinking about like what is a way in which we could have people get really angered by this. And we came up with the idea of the box, right, which is like the only way that you can protect women in the future, if things continue to go as they do, is by literally putting them in a physical box and covering their face, because that's the only way that they'll be protected from like not having people take their image without their consent and then use it to sort of like share and make generative AI deepfakes. So that's kind of like the seed of the idea. And then we basically took that and really pumped it up with a lot of satire, thinking about like how could we build this like product company from Silicon Valley, which is like promoting this sort of like box as a way of the future, and like how so many of our technology products that we have right now, so many apps that we have right now are really, really horrible social problems, but are repackaged as really savvy tech challenges that are being solved. So we kind of wanted to use that narrative and put the box within that context and built up this entire website where we created like a fictional, obviously, spoiler alert, it's a fictional idea. The box doesn't exist, thankfully, at least yet. Where we created this website of the box. It had like different packages. One package you could become man, where you could, instead of being, you could project an image of a man on the box outwardly facing, and that would help you get more promotions. It would help you be taken more seriously in business meetings. So we were trying to also hit on some of these other challenges that women face. The other one was called, like, I think it was called the glow up package. So you could look basically like celebrities of certain kinds who are of a certain kind of aesthetic, because that makes men think you're really attractive. So we were obviously trying to really, really blur the lines between what is okay and what is not okay, and really using satire as a medium to do that. And we just launched it on LinkedIn. We have a website. I'm happy to share it with you, that you can like share with everyone, so they can really understand what I'm saying, because it sounds like I'm crazy right now. And then we sort of applied with the box to a couple of festivals and grants, because we thought it would be really cool to do that and just travel around with it a bit. And we were accepted to MozFest, actually, which we just presented at last week. Louis, my collaborator, he was able to go. I wasn't able to go because I had some visa issues, but we built the box out. So we actually built what the box could look like and had people come and engage with it. And, we talk about the future of why, if we don't have certain guardrails and certain regulations for large language models or technology channels or technology partners, and if we just continue to let it be so easy for generative AI deepfakes to be made, this is kind of the future that we'll be faced in. So long story short, the problem that I was trying to tackle was that we need to have better policy, regulation, and guardrails around around how this shouldn't be allowed, or how it shouldn't be allowed, but why is it so easy to have it done? And the box was our way of showing people what is really wrong and how it's only going to get worse. So that's kind of like one example of how you can contribute, or how I contributed. Like, I just took this idea, I found someone who was as excited or wanted to experiment, and we just built something together. At the point when I had this idea, I did not know where I was going to go. I didn't know we were going to go present at one of the biggest tech festivals in the world. I didn't know that I was going to be able to do that. But I think just the determination or the persistence of wanting to contribute in a way that is a bit unique, that is a bit fun, or that is quite hard hitting. To me, that's a way in which you can contribute, right? And you can just ask interesting questions, you can present alternative futures. So that's kind of, for me, what worked. And again, I'm not a product manager. I don't build products, but it's just like the idea of like being able to do that and put that to life. That was really fun.
If there's anyone that wants to come into this space, start working into this space, what's that one advice that you're going to give them?
I think my piece of advice would be to find a community or other people in your network who are interested or thinking about similar things. I think there's so many virtual but also in-person run communities now. I run one myself, so this would be like a humble plug. I run this community called Women in Safety and Ethics, and we organize in-person meetups for women specifically who are interested in these kinds of themes. It's not for a specific kind of person. It can be someone who's just like thinking about these things, someone who's like very late into their career, someone who's an established professional, someone who's in academia, someone who's trying to make a career pivot. And we sort of organize meetups in different cities for us to just get together and talk, get to know each other, build our networks. So right now we're live in Paris, Washington, D.C., London, and we're actually launching 2 new chapters in Brussels and Delhi. We also have a very active Slack community. So if anyone wants to get involved, it's a great place to like meet other people, begin to start talking, begin to learn. A lot of people share reading, share opportunities, share courses that they found interesting, share podcast recommendations, or also just like, oh, this event is happening in this city. I would love to go for it. Is anyone going? So I think, long story short, I would say just like find your community where you can begin to like think about these things. You can ideate out loud. You have other people you can like spitball with, and but I would also say like another great way to do it is to like just write about it. Like I know people probably hear this a lot, but like LinkedIn, Substack, Medium, write for student newspaper, write for a local newspaper, approach different think tanks, try and do internship, try and just try and build your expertise. But I think what is really, really valuable, which I think I started doing a bit later, is like put your name against certain like opinions or like certain perspectives that really do resonate with you. So like write a LinkedIn post about something that you really believe in or something you're thinking about. Write a featured article for like, let's say, a magazine or a newspaper about something that you're thinking about, and put your name against it, because that's how people will begin to think about you and like remember you. Like, oh, Nitya's a like AI generated deepfake person. Oh, Nitya's the one who is really interested in dating apps, because that's kind of how people build the image of you in your mind. And it's totally okay to change your mind. We're all human beings. It's totally fine. But find a community, I think, a safe, fun community where you can experiment, explore, ideate. And don't be afraid to like post about things and share your opinion in the public domain. That would be my advice. I'm happy to also share the link for the WISE community in case any of your subscribers want to like check it out. Nice humble plug for me.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to add all the links and resources to the description. Thank you so much, Nick, for this conversation. I really had an amazing time, and I'm sure everyone listening and watching is going to really learn a lot from it. Thank you so much again.
Thank you. I hope I didn't ramble too much, but it was so nice to see you again, and I love what you're doing, and I'll definitely catch up with you again soon.
Yeah, me too.
Take care. Bye.
If you enjoyed this conversation with I and Nitya, do help to like it, subscribe, leave your comments, and we'll be here to answer all your questions. You can also follow Nitya on LinkedIn. I'm going to link a link to her LinkedIn in the description. I'm also going to link the box in the description, and also the WISE community if you want to join the community. If you love this video, you're going to love my video on thriving as a data professional in an AI-driven world. So check out this video and watch it. Or you can also watch this video where Arepitan shares her journey of getting into United Nations from engineering. So see you in the next video.